Ladies and gentlemen, we are now starting a completely new track. It's also new on the conference. It's the first time, actually the second time, if you take under consideration yesterday. We are talking about digital transformation in industrial sector. This conference was for 4 years, actually, more related to the issues that happen in service industry, in banking, in telecommunication, in retail, in pure digital companies. I think a lot of interesting things are happening also in the industrial and logistics sector. And as we heard yesterday from Krzysztof Domarecki and Alex Poniewierski, this sector, global manufacturing and logistics, has been implementing technology to provide intelligent automation, to provide very effective manufacturing capabilities, and also to inject some kind of flexibility into the industrial and logistic processes for years, for decades actually. But maybe there was not that much hype about it, especially in those sectors which constituted the core of the Digital Champions audience for years. So we are changing that. As we are willing to learn, we need to really look across the borders of the industries, especially in contemporary world of convergent business. We need to have also a convergent learning approach. So this session will be provided by two gentlemen, by Patrick Bellart, who is representing FM Logistic, which is a global organization providing logistic services to companies and people around the world, and Edward Blomstedt, who is an inventor and entrepreneur and startup owner from Finland. So how was the flight? Perfect, okay. It's fully digital. So he was, Edward was probably traveling through some kind of teleportation if it was really 100% digital. So our intention is to start with two short presentations that provide a very focused and very focused vision how we can think or rethink the entire industrial and logistics value chain. I think this is at the core of the transformation. It's not just an incremental improvement, but also looking more forward into the future of what can happen next. I think this is also the interesting part of this thinking. So let's start with Edward Blomstedt. The floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Edward Blomstedt, and I come from a company from Finland called AirFaaS. And we are a company rethinking how industrial manufacturing can and should be done globally. And I was asked to come here to speak about transformation, and I assume that would be within industry and not something else. So I'll try to focus on what we see is happening in industry and what can and should happen in the future. Just quickly, before I go into other things, my focus will be on ecosystems and how ecosystems within industry can transform and free up resources and basically allow companies to do business globally in a completely new fashion. And I'll soon go into why that is important. Basically, our vision as AirFaaS is to enable companies to manufacture globally, harness resources where they are needed, and basically transform the way manufacturing is done. And in so release the largest wave of productivity increase in human history. But before I go into why that is important, I want to give a rough example of what this actually could mean in a normal life. My history is such that our company, or my mother actually was hired in the 80s by Swedish companies to start running mobile operators in the Soviet Union, and thanks to that we moved to Moscow in '91. So we moved to the Soviet Union, but that actually transformed into Russia very quickly. And what I would assume to be one of the largest geopolitical changes or transformations in human history. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. What really interested me was the way they set up their taxi system. Basically, all resources on the streets were more or less available for people to use. You went out in the street, put up your hand, and wait for a resource or basically a car to stop. You negotiate where you want to go, and you negotiate on a price, fix it, and then you just go. Basically, it's the perfect setup for an ecosystem, but in this case, just in a completely analog fashion. So nothing digital, but basically all the cars that are on the streets are available to use for everyone. I can't come up with a better, actually, system for a taxi solution in the world, and at least we in Finland are messed up at the moment when we freed it up for complete market competition. And basically this is a very analog example to what is happening in a digital world and in ecosystems. So our vision is important for us because we feel like there's the largest change in business history that is up and running at the moment, and this will lead to a huge revamp in which large corporations will see a different influx of competition from small companies, and also companies are able to actually do global business, manufacture closer to their demand, and they're able to rethink how a physical product business is done. And we really want to be part of this change. And also, why is it important? The fact that you can manufacture closer to demand, the fact that you can take unstandardized manufacturing and handle it in a more standardized digital fashion means that you no longer do mega factories in China and transport globally. It means that you basically start manufacturing to need, closer to that demand and need, and you basically start harnessing resources in a completely different manner. At the same time, when we have an industry that currently makes, for example, in Finland, 26% of our GDP, and globally that would not be far from the same number, it means that a huge number of our people are actually involved in manufacturing and involved in this business. And that means that if that changes, it will have a huge impact on our societies, and it will have a huge problem for people that are based on that business. But I see myself as an optimist, so I want to say that that doesn't necessarily mean that we will have only problems up ahead. We also have a huge opportunity, and it means that new businesses will grow. And I usually try to use an analog for this, that about 100 years ago, most of our transportation logistics, both for humans and products, was based on horses. And that meant that nothing could be transported to the same extent globally. You couldn't travel globally. And when the cars came in, they definitely devastated the livelihood of all peoples that did business within horses, within manufacturing horseshoes. And for those people, it was a complete devastation. But as a society, I think that we're more or less better off than we were 100 years ago. So I think that there is a lot of hope. And usually, I would say that if you think traditionally and historically, every time a huge influx of productivity has come, it has always led to the society doing better, people's livelihoods being better, and their chances in life to rise. And I'm sure that this same thing will happen inevitably, even though we at this stage maybe don't know all the new businesses that will arise through this transformation that is coming. But definitely we see that ecosystems are the change in this. And why we see that AirFaaS is part of this and why it is so relevant is that there is actually already a solution to how you harness industrial manufacturing globally. And our solution to that is AirFaaS, in which you basically connect factories and you connect people or companies that need manufacturing, and you digitalize factories overnight. So you make sure that they don't work in their ERP silos. You ensure that they can communicate from company to company completely digitally. You ensure that they don't rely only on emails, but that they can communicate in modern ways. You ensure that they don't need to do multiple integrations from company to company. Instead, you can use and harness an ecosystem to increase the number of integrations and increase the number and speed of communication between companies fast. And there is a solution that allows you to standardize before unstandardized manufacturing forms. And it also takes out the financing burdens from factories. So basically, large companies forcing smaller factories to finance them. So we have solved that and pushed it all onto banks. Also reforming the manufacturing industry and freeing up productivity to be used in a better way. And it transforms businesses so that you open web shops between companies automatically. And all of this is already in today's society possible. And obviously AirFaaS is just our suggestion on how this can and should be done. So I'm not here to advertise, but I'm here to just thank you and tell you why this transformation in our view is coming and why it will be the biggest revolution since Henry Ford's mass production. So I seem to have gone 3 minutes overboard, but that's currently part of the tradition here, I see.
Not really, just last session was really over.
But yeah, that was basically what I tried to say.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Now the stage will go to Patrick. I just need to reset the computers. And we will have one last speaker presenting her view on the future of industry transformation, which we will have online, as we trained yesterday that it really does work. So we will be joined in 10 minutes by Margaret McDowell from Informatica, a BI company that specializes in modern BI, in managing in real time also data from various sources, that's including also sources that are present on the manufacturing line. So just a moment. Let me switch to the proper presentation. Okay, here we are. And without further ado, the floor goes to Patrick Bellart. Okay, you can go with this one. I think this one is forward. Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So my name is Patrick Bellart. I am in charge of technological innovation at FM Logistic. And first of all, I will speak a bit less about digital, because our job, FM Logistic, is a company about supply chain execution. So we are really much in the real world. It means we are loading, picking, preparing the order, loading the order, carrying the order, but the physical order up to you or to the shop. So that's why my challenge as a technological innovation manager is to see how we can benefit of all the digitals to bring them to our operation. So very, very quickly, if I can introduce the company in 2 words, we do 1 billion, 1.2 billion euro turnover, mainly in Europe, mainly in low-cost countries. That is very often a challenge when you are in the robotics or physical innovation. And we focus a lot on fast-moving consumer goods. That is the next challenge, because fast-moving consumer goods is big volumes, but it's relatively low-value products, so that some of the solutions well done for automotive, for our aeronautic industry are not applicable in our sector. So our challenge is somehow, if you know the hype cycle from Gartner, my main problem is that I don't work where everybody's speaking about. When you speak about, for example, now we speak about a lot. A few months ago, it was drone for deliveries, but it's not a mature solution. So we rather speak about solutions that are going to the plateau of productivity, because they feel our expectation. Our expectation is when we move to logistics, we need to be reliable. You cannot accept not to be delivered the goods you ordered. It's obvious. But this means that I need behind to have a reliable technology. I need also to have them affordable, because finally, you as a consumer or our customer wants to pay a low price for logistics. It's still often seen as a commodities or not as an added value. So we need to pay attention to that, especially in low-cost country. And you need to remain flexible, because nobody is able today to tell us what will be the logistics organization in 5 to 10 years. So the second point what we have to take into consideration is that innovation is a cycle. I take as an example the inventory drone, that if you look well, between the idea that we work with a partner that got an award in 2015. And today, we are here, we are in 2018, and we have 4 what we can call pre-series products that are in production. But it's not yet a product. It will be a product in 2019 or even 2020. And you see that it has different form in between. So I can give you a short video so you can see real life how everybody speak about drones, but how could look the drone, but it's still not yet a full affordable solution, and it's still, let's say, finding lots of improvement. By the way, it's still not full autonomous solution. You still have a guy changing batteries every 15 minutes. So you show that between the digital and the let's say the big words and the reality. So our job is to find the path to make it to make the change becoming real. And then, of course, we need to have a strategy. And again, our strategy is focusing to our job. Our job is supply chain execution. So our job is to improve the supply chain execution. And for that, we want to bring automation, flexible automation, because we need to be reactive, and we cannot go to customized solution. The second one is how to bring the benefits of digital. By the way, automation is a huge trend now everywhere in Poland, because we lack of people. So everybody wants to automate, but that's not that easy. And again, between the nice program, the future, and the realization, and all the flexibility required by logistics, this is a challenge we have to fight every day. So we try to deploy cobots, we try to deploy forklift, let's say driverless forklifts, and lots around robotics, because robotics is for us a key of automation, keeping flexibility. I have again a very short video so that you could have a bit of look and feel what is a warehouse and what is a digital challenge inside the warehouse.
Oops. Okay, it's in French.
Yeah, it's in French.
Okay,
so no matter to get the sound.
Okay, thank you.
What is interesting to say is to say that here we are in the real collaborative work, and it's easier to automate a forklift than to automate a car. Everybody speaks about autonomous car. It's easier to make forklifts, but the problem is that we are in a collaborative world. So the forklifts you see are fully integrated to the operation, where you have men and machine working together, and this is a real big transformation challenge, because the men needs to adapt to the machines, but also the machines needs to adapt to the men, and somehow it's easier to make machines work with machines than to make them collaborative. And you see also that we try to automate what is automatable. So you see very manual job, because you do not have volume, it's too complex to automate, and you see very automated job just near to them. And this is the balance between both that is creating the value. So this is just to have a snapshot about what could be automation. And here you see still lots of manual operation. And imagine that the future of the logistics will be that the manual part will remain, but will probably reduce more and more over the time. About digital, you have plenty of things. We focus on quality, efficiency, interface, man-machines, how to have the people working, knowing what they have to do. So, sometimes I take the example of Amazon Go. We'd like to be FM Go, that you pick your order, nobody's checking, and it's a perfect order. But then there is one point missing in Amazon Go. How to know what you have to prepare. Usually, if you go to Amazon and then you take your piece of paper, what your wife asks you to purchase, is not so digital. So this is the way also we need to implement. And then, of course, connected objects are already in industry reality. You speak a bit about them. Not yet in fast-moving consumer goods, because the value of the product is too low to connect them fully. But we work to track the continent, the place they are, so the track or the pallet. And then data and data and data, but here you are even better than me about data. Just a few snapshots. We work with what we call tracking of truck using application for driver or using estimated time of arrival. Somehow it's really funny. What you have at home with the parcel service delivery sending you an SMS that it will be here in 10 minutes, we do the same, but at truck level, to know that the truck coming from Romania or from whether it's production factory will arrive soon, so that we can take him over much quicker and to spend less time over the plant. We lack driver in Europe, and it's going to be worse. But the autonomous trucks are not ready. So let's make the driver drive and not going to parking. We work on different technology. All the digital technology we have at home are arriving in the industry. Industry is late versus consumer goods. So this is our challenge, to bring digital solutions to industry. I will show you just one after. A small one that really I like, because if you go to factory, very often you see not so much mobile device, but you see Windows embedded from 2008. So not really open to new tools. And you have your smartphone at home, and you come to very out-of-date technology. And this is what we are trying to do. We are starting to move to Android Professional, and we are trying to do what your son or your daughter is doing at home. He has an issue, he go to YouTube, find a tutorial, and then solve the issue. And this is what you are trying to make available for our worker. So this is maybe not the large vision of the supply chain, because at the end the supply chain is execution. And this is more how we see that the transformation of digital and of automation will transform. What you see here is just the beginning. Driverless forklifts that you've seen is like iPhone 1. In 10 years, they will be much quicker and much efficient. But this is the way we need to work, to test, to find the place to make this digital transformation in logistics being happening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Patrick. And we have one last speaker. Can we switch online?
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, absolutely. We can't see you. Ah, we can see you. All right, then. Hello. Please share with us your view, or Informatica view, or your personal view based on Informatica experiences related to what's important as far as the data-related issues and advanced analytics stuff. Which part of these are an important aspect of digital transformation in the industrial world?
Yes, absolutely. So good morning, everyone. Sorry that I couldn't be there in person. My name is McDonell. I'm working with Informatica. We're a global leader in enterprise cloud data management solutions. So why we've been invited here today, represented by our partners in Poland, Integral Solutions, is if you look underneath the cover of Industry 4.0 or any digital transformation, it's actually data that is what making this work. Data is the foundation of our digital transformation. If you can do the next slide, please. But the one thing that strikes people, what strikes me in particular, is the data is not just the sensor data. So you see the robots and you see the automated factories and the automated supply chains. And a lot of people think, well, this is just about the sensor data. But it's not. It's about what you can do when you combine that sensor data with other data. A bit like the warehouse example we've just seen, where the robots and the cobots work with people. The sensor data, working with other more traditional data sets, provide the value. If you go to the next slide. Now this slide actually builds. So what we're looking here, if you go move forward again, is we're looking at the first steps of this. Is just sensor data, and you can use the sensor data to improve machine performance and process performance. And this is done already today on a local site level. And for this, you primarily need sensor data. If we go forward again, please. What the next step is, where people are going, is predictive diagnostics. Again, you're probably just using sensor data for manufacturing and so forth. For the actual processes and predicting processes and predictive maintenance. If you include asset and maintenance data, and you bring data in from a number of factories down the world, you can really start acting on technologies like condition-based maintenance, and actually doing a lot more granular sales and operations planning. So really using your factory data to help you plan your production processes and your operations. If you build that up and you combine even more data with product and supply chain data, now you can actually look at things like, how does a product perform in the marketplace and how it's meant to be used compared to the settings on the machines when it was actually built. So you can actually tie machine settings into product quality. And again, that coordination allows you to do faster new product introduction. So adding more data again, if you push down, you can look at really coordinating. So if you just advance the slide, please. If you then bring in your customer data and potentially even consumer data, what you're looking is personalization. So additive manufacture will give us the possibility of creating personalized products, but you can also be a lot more proactive by looking at various sets of which products were manufactured, how they are manufactured, who bought them. So when you do offers and recalls, that can be very much more personalized to individuals rather than across the industry. And of course, from the supply chain, going back to the delivery and the logistics theme, with all this information tied up from sales orders all the way through to the way your production's working now, very tightly, you can improve your perfect order for both direct customers and potentially indirect customers. So next step. So what's the challenge? The challenge is a number of folds, and Gartner saw this as a data management challenge, is that data management, if you look at a factory, data management on the shop floor is done completely differently to data management and analytics in the rest of the industry. One is run by the IT department. They wouldn't know what to do with sensor data. The other is run by the OT department, the operations technology, who are very familiar with sensor data, but might have a hard time navigating through a complex IT organization to find accurate and valuable data about, say, for example, product performance or customers. So if we go down, I think this is what we're trying to do with the IoT and Factory 4.0, is we're trying to look across an organization and say, we have data. This data could be on the cloud, it could be on premise. It comes from the data is originally generated by a number of different departments. R&D, production supply chain, commercial, increasingly devices and social media, both internal to your organization and external, and lots of outsourcing and partnerships. So we, again, just in the session, we heard two good examples of outsourcing for logistics and manufacturing. The challenge is that all this data is produced in different formats and stored in different places. So as you get an idea, you need IT and business to work together to very rapidly find the data to support their new business models or their new products, or improving a business model or an offer that you come out. But that's the challenge, and that's what Gartner's speaking to, is in these 5 neat little boxes is actually a very complex area that you need to get data out of to make sure it's of high quality. So it should be easy to find, it should be easy to understand, and it should be easy to integrate data across various data sets to achieve your new business models for positive outcomes driving value. Next slide. So this is an example from an Informatica customer. It started in one factory in the US, is now being rolled out. What Johnson & Johnson found is they had a fairly automated environment, complex machinery, but the communication between the factory and the front office was slow. There were reports that were printed out and stuck on notice boards. If someone on the shop floor, if someone wanted to see what's going on, they had to walk past the notice board. So this is a great step towards Industry 4.0. What Johnson & Johnson tried to do was take the data they already have from their machines, create a data layer that made a foundation of this and made sense of this. Are we speaking about the same machine? Is everyone speaking about the same product? How do we make our data flow quicker? And how do we ensure that there's a high quality data that's available? So a data foundation of integration, quality, governance, and master data. And once they had that data foundation, they were able to overlay business analytics tools and allow people in the shop floor and in the offices to see the same information, to collaborate and coordinate better. And without any major revolution in sensors or Industry 4.0, they've taken the 4 step and seen real business value of productivity increases of 7% and above across all sites and production lines. And this is now with this foundation, they can roll the same solution out to all their factories globally, allowing not only collaboration on one site, but a collaboration on sites, across sites around the world, and learning from best practices. So that's what I had today, just to draw your attention that as you bring all the new sensors, as you bring the new business models, the outsourcing business models, the new machines, really a focus on the data allows you to make the most use and draw the best value from this new information that's coming into your organization.
Thank you very much for your input to the discussion. Now, I have a couple of points, because obviously, everybody's talking about this industrial internet, and I think we have probably a wrong or overly simplified the metaphor when we are talking about industrial internet, because we think of this global network which has one thing that mitigates between the diversity of devices and the diversity of use cases, which is IP protocol and HTTP protocol. And basically a couple of well-defined, commonly agreed, universally agreed protocols which make things cooperate so that you can build an electronic banking system or AirFaaS as a digital service which runs smoothly on every device. And I think there is this vision. I believe the originator has been GE Digital, but maybe I'm wrong. They were talking about an equivalent of operating system that runs every device that is on shop floor in a factory or maybe in a logistic value chain. And I think this is simply not happening. I mean, are we really on a way? Well, Margaret has been mentioning this diversity of data, but I would say even more. It's a diversity of protocols, sometimes very proprietary ones, and I think lack of consensus that we should build something that will really enable a startup for Poland to easily fit a production line developed by Dürr, for example, and placed in a Volkswagen factory. And I mean, what's your view of that? I mean, are we really approaching the vision? Are we really on track to approach the vision of this industrial internet as a thing that would resemble internet as we see it today?
approaching, probably not yet, but some work. Let's say we are sponsoring a school in Paris that is working on the what you call industrial internet, or some other call it physical internet. Because there are some small initiatives around the project to make it real. One point is the data, is the communication, and somehow today it's like you have plenty. It's like in startups, you have plenty of companies trying to work around tracking autonomous IoT, autonomous containers. You have plenty of solutions existing on the market, and nobody knows who will be the winner. Probably, I would say, in 5 or 10 years, some will fail, some will concentrate, and you will have most probably less solution. Or if you still have a lot of solution, you will have super integrators that will collect the data from whatever is your sensor. A bit some initiative on this direction. A second key criteria is there are lots of jobs about containerization, because if today you look at logistics, there is a big issue about normalization. You have the container that is a kind of 20, 40 feet, and that is a norm. You have the pallets. Okay, Euro pallet for Europe. You go to UK, it's already not exactly the same norm. But in between, you have nothing. And there is tremendous job being around, create somehow intermediate containers that could be a quarter of pallet, half a pallet, but will be normalized. That will be somehow whatever is a product inside, you can handle them the same way. And if you equip these containers, they are reusable. And if you equip them with IoT, so with sensor, you can, at the moment you put something inside and you can put it in factory, you will tell what is inside the container. The container is autonomous, is communicating where it is, what is inside, what is the batch number. And then somehow you have this protocol of data, so not of data, but of physical product inside a normalized content, communicating normalized content that will be able to travel inside the supply chain, whatever is the way, the most optimum way according to the availability of capacity or whatever. So the model has been worked a lot at a university research point of view, and now they try to find some companies, some sector where they could test some small part of the model. Some companies like P&G are working a lot around containerization, for example, because they are part of the ones that believe that probably they could pack the product no more in cardboard, but directly in some standard containers that would go then through the whole supply chain. But it's a 20 to 20 years path to become reality.
Very interesting. Edward, the question I have to you is actually slightly different, because what I think, if you want to tackle this one, as you are absolutely welcome.
I have to tackle everything, but go on.
But my question to you is because it's something that puzzles me really. Yes, when I heard about your idea, I think it's a great story. It's a virtualization of industrial capabilities, but. I mean, there is a real life behind that portal. I mean, there is this need to provide fulfillment of what you are offering to your clients. There is this entire complexity of the logistics behind the production. And I mean, how do you manage to be able to provide a quality of service to the customers? Because that's my question number one when I look at AirFaaS.
Well, that's a very broad question. I think if you look at any complex situation and problem, if you try to figure out how to, as your first step to build a rocket and get someone to the moon, you'll probably fail immediately. Start by doing something more simple. When we look at the quite old-fashioned industry that we're working in with machine workshops around the world, it's completely the opposite of digital, and in a large part of the world you don't necessarily have ERP systems even. So I think that there's so much that you can do that are much lower hanging fruit than trying to go in and pinpointing how to direct a production line from abroad, let's say. So from our point of view, the main criteria and question is how to link up these factories in a way that is usable so that you can actually access them from afar. And then the problem turns to number one, getting the critical mass of manufacturing plants and categorizing them in the correct way. That's not hugely impossibly hard. Second one is to standardize enough the format in which manufacturing specifications are dealt with. That also is a very broad spectrum, but if you narrow it down to the bare minimum required, then you're able to squeeze out, let's say, 50% of the problems that are normally there in manufacturing. And then when you add on the ecosystem thinking, so the complete opposite of what many companies are forced to do at the moment, that you build your own, let's say, supplier portals, you build a silo, you assign companies to try to work in your system, in your way. So our way of thinking is the opposite of that. You give software to companies more or less for free that you can run supplier portals, customer portals, web shops, very modern communication channels, tools like Slack, but everything for free. You get, the only thing you actually need to do is either take it into use, or then if you have an ERP, then you pay and make an integration into your ERP. Other than that, you're so much further than where you were before that, and that already helps you to unleash productivity on a completely different level, and that for a company that is seeking to manufacture their products can completely change their own business model. So that already takes us, let's say, halfway from perfect. And halfway is better than zero.
Yes, the zero. But is it a complicated thing to manage all these, relationships on a contractual level? Is this, some big part of what you need to take care of?
Well, they are obviously. I mean, there are certain things that you can't just digitalize and automate. There are also personal relationships between companies that cannot be taken away. But by putting it into a portal format, building an ecosystem, you don't solve every single problem in the world, but you solve the biggest hangovers or headaches that are actually there in production. And you are able to build, let's say for your contract question, you're able to build general contracts that solve the problem in which a quite large amount of business in the world is actually dealt with without formal contracts. So it actually improves it there. It doesn't take away all the risks of copying or IPR infringement, but it puts some sort of framework for it, so it improves the situation. And the same goes for everything from production flow to information flow to document flow to non-conformity flow and so on.
Okay, and where are your manufacturing capacities placed physically? I mean, which geographies, for example? Is this Finland, or is it
Well, it's mostly Eastern Europe, Finland, and India and China. But well, Finland is not necessarily a low cost, even though our government is doing everything to make it a low cost. But
okay, so it's truly global as far as the back end of the entire machine is.
But let's say out of the millions of factories, we don't have all of them yet. So,
I guess so.
But it doesn't need to have everything to be good enough. The point is that at the status where it is now, it immediately digitalizes factories and it immediately enhances the global supply chain of the companies that are starting to use it. Because it improves how you manufacture, it improves how you communicate and how information flows throughout the whole system.
Okay, thank you, Raj. Margaret, the question to you goes like that. I mean, with this idea of digital twin, when we talk about digital twins, we talk about simulations, but basically all these things are useless without high quality data. You mentioned that as a center of your presentation. I mean, looking at your customers, at what your customers are doing, do you see this idea of virtualization of production, manufacturing assets? Build the simulators for them and use that for improving efficiency of usage of the asset. It's something that really happens on a large scale already, or are there any major challenges for your customers to actually do that? Like, for example, the unavailability of certain data from the manufacturers of robotic arms, for example, that they don't want to share the specification, so you get the data, but you don't know what it means.
I think I have to refer back to the rocket ship analogy there. I think a digital twin for a lot of companies now is like trying to walk out into their backyard and putting a rocket ship together, and they've never actually built a car before. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people what they're struggling with now is looking at integrating the data with the front end. And where they're starting is they're thinking of one or two use cases which will allow them to improve something, productivity, efficiency, collaboration, and gathering the data that they have and combining it. And within the scope of that project, they go back and say, do we have all the sensor data that we have? And often they have the sensor data. It's a means of just getting that sensor data to where it needs to be. Or if they have older machines, they need to retrofit additional sensors to collect additional data on that machine, on that production process. And in addition to that, a lot of the factories are not yet fully automated. So you have to, in part of your digital twin and your simulation, you have to also understand what the people are doing, because they have a huge influence on your process as well. Individual operators who have different habits, shortcuts, efficiencies that they gain themselves. So that needs to be taken into account. Mm-hmm. So where we see our customers today is they're starting off with their, I wouldn't say their pilots, but it's the one or two local projects to help understand where the sensor data can help them and where Industry 4.0 will provide value for them. Mm-hmm. And then once they've understood that, they can look at the more complex simulations.
Okay, thank you very much. One last question goes to Patrick. You mentioned that you are very much focused on this area of productivity, that you basically buy technologies that work. But you've shown us also, the experiments, for example, with the drones. Obviously not productive yet because of the energy issues, but maybe some other as well. I mean, what's your approach as a big international vendor, as an incubation space? Because these solutions need to get the maturity somewhere. They cannot. How you do it?
The maturity is required to move to go into operations, and this is critical. After we have to keep a place for incubation. When I give you the drone, we are not the actor of the drone. It was a partner of us. But we offered our facility, our people, our working experience to help them first to play, and then to understand exactly how is the process of inventory. And then I was arriving before, there is the same question, minimal viable product. And here the drone you see today is not perfect because you still have an operator, but it's piloted by tablet, so any one of us can in 30 seconds know how to manage it, and it's delivering some benefits that are valuable enough in some operation to be put into production. So incubation, when we go to production, really there's really a cut between the test phase, the pilot phase, and the go for production, because we need to be reliable. Okay. But then there is plenty of space, especially at the corporate level, because somehow we are a bit less in operation, and innovation department is my duty to balance a bit of, let's say, more mature product coming from industry, coming from consumer goods, on more, let's say, new products that where we will offer the space to incubate. Our shareholders are even considering at today to open a venture capital to support some logistic initiatives, startups around physical logistics.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you for the discussion. Thank you for your outlooks related to the rethinking of the entire value chain of manufacturing and global logistics. It's global, really. So your guests have been Patrick Bellart, Edward Blomstedt, and Monica McDowell. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Monica.
Thanks.